In this interactive guide, you'll learn how to create labels and label policies with Microsoft Purview information protection. Hello, I am Theo Rodriguez. You'll see how information protection can help you classify sensitive information across your organization, enforce protection settings, and prevent data loss. This is the Microsoft Purview Compliance Portal, where we logged in as a compliance administrator. To get started, scroll down the left navigation pane and expand Information Protection. And then click on Labels. Sensitivity labels let you classify email messages, documents, sites, and other locations to protect your organization's data. Expand the highly confidential label to present labels to users in a logical groups. You can include one or more sublabels under a parent label. In this case, we'll create a sub-label under the highly confidential label, which will be used to classify highly confidential data related to research and development activities. To add the sub-label, select the ellipses. Next, click Create Sublabel and provide a name, display name, and description. The sublabel inherits the color of the parent label, but you could basically change the parent label if you wanted to change that. Here, you can choose, or rather define, the scope of the label. Note that Microsoft Purview now protects information across your organization, including files, emails, and meetings, Microsoft 365 groups, SharePoint sites, and even schematized data assets. We'll keep the default settings and continue through the steps. Next, we can choose the protection settings for label items. So we're going to choose the apply or remove encryption, apply content marking, and protect Teams meetings and chats. Encryption settings allow you to control who can access files and email messages that have this label applied. Let's scroll down and select Assign Permissions. We'll give the product research and leadership groups permissions to access content that has this label applied. You can also assign permissions to a specific email addresses or domains, including external users. Let's add a contact at an external organization. Next, specify what the users can do with the encrypted content. Read carefully all the options and what you can do with this encryption settings, and then click save. And then save again the settings, and then continue through the steps. Enable content marking to add a custom header or footer to content that has this label applied. In this case, we are going to add a header, and we can customize all this, the header text, the font size, the color, the alignment, and anything that you want to do there. Gotta save the changes. Next, configure the settings for Teams meetings that have this label applied. Now, as I go these settings, it was recently on the news a couple of days ago that somehow somebody got into a Teams meeting in a big organization, very big and well-known organization. Somebody got into a meeting. Don't know exactly how, but the person got into the meeting, and because he was part of this meeting, he has the permission of, so he shared some files in the meeting, and it happened to be that those files was malware that created havoc and encrypted a lot of data, and it just did tremendous damage in the company. So just uh, we live in an era in which there are so many sophisticated attacks, right? And using sensitivity label in Teams meeting is a great way to protect against those kind of attacks. Let's click next, continue. To continue there, and next we'll enable auto labeling for the files and emails. You can let users choose when to apply these labels. That's one option, but that defeats the purpose in many times. There are business cases in which you want people to do that, but in most cases you want this label to be applied automatically. So let's scroll down to see some of the settings and what we can do. We are going to add a condition, and that condition is that to automatically apply this label to content that contains the research and development sensitive type that we worked on earlier, I believe in another video. We'll only apply the label to items which have been detected with a median confidence level in this case. You can configure Microsoft Purview to automatically label content that meets these conditions, or recommend that users apply the label themselves, as I just explained. For the purpose of this demonstration, we'll recommend that users apply the label when content matches the condition that we specified. Next, we're going to select the protection settings that you want to take effect when this label is applied to teams, groups, and sites. Here you can define the privacy and external user access settings to limit the visibility and access to members of the team or group. Let's select private, and will allow Microsoft 365 group owners to invite external users as guests, especially if we are collaborating with external partners, which is very common in today's age, and especially in bigger organizations. We do that all the time at the place where I'm working at right now. All right, so we're going to make these choices regarding the external sharing and conditional access. There's a lot of information here. Make sure that you read over and understand if you want to learn more about this. Will allow limited web-only access from unmanaged devices. This option also prevents users from downloading or printing files. And we're not going to get into the manage or unmanaged devices. We have covered that in all the videos in this Zero Trust journey with Microsoft solutions and services. We could use the configure auto labeling for schematized data assets in Microsoft Purview data map, but we'll skip this step for now. Schematized, we're talking about something like SQL, Azure SQL, and that kind of technology. Here you review the settings and then create the label. You could go back or click on individual settings and edit if it's needed. To make the label available for use, a policy must be created to publish or auto apply it. For the purpose of this guide, we'll choose don't create policy yet and look at how to create a policy after exiting the wizard. To create a label, policy, to publish the label you just created, click Publish Label. Choose the sensitivity label that you want to publish. And in this case, we want to publish the research and development label that we just created. Since it's a sub-label of the highly confidential label, we need to add both labels. Next, you can choose the admin units or set of users that you would like to assign this policy to. For the purpose of this demonstration, we'll keep the default settings and continue through the steps. Next, you can choose the, again, as I said, actually the admin units, we talked about that. Basically, here what you would choose is the users or groups. You can include all users, or you can choose and pick specific users and groups. And this is really important, especially when you are trying for the first time. If you're, this could be, I mean, you can cause a lot of trouble by publishing labels to all users if you do this by mistake. And I remember once in which I was just doing something, especially when I was learning this thing, and I was working with labels, and I applied a label to all emails and documents with by mistake, and it was not funny. Okay, so my recommendation is that when you are working with this, just to make sure that avoid any trouble. Just do a testing first. Do a pilot, apply it to yourself, or create, test group or users, to work with, or choose a pilot group of users, maybe some people from the IT department, and to do this. But be careful about this. Next, configure the settings for the labels included in this policy. So here we're gonna, it says user must provide a justification to remove a label or lower its classification if that's what you want to do. There's all the things in here. It's also important to require users to apply a label to their, other contents, like in this case, Power BI. Anyway, so make sure that you understand the settings. The second settings is require users to apply a label to their emails and documents. Now, if it's an auto label, well, you don't have to require users to apply because it will be applied automatically. But if it's manual, then you could basically force the users to apply to certain locations, certain services. You could also choose to provide users with a link to a custom help page. So if you want to do some extra explanation, about this label, so you could, have this link with help to explain to the users. Once you've chosen whatever you want to do, then just continue with the wizard, right? There's more settings over here. Apply to a default. Well, because this is another label, we don't want to apply any default labels. So just click on continue. We'll configure emails to inherit the highest priority label from any attachments with labels applied. And so basically what this means is that if a label is applied to an email, when an attachment with a higher priority label is added to an email, this setting replaces the existing label with the label from the attachment. Okay. So what that means is that if multiple label attachments are added, the highest priority label will be applied. If the email isn't already labeled, it will inherit the highest priority label from any attachment. That's basically what it's, it's also some more information over there, that some recommendation that you can take. So it's important that you read carefully, and this is why it's always important to test this with a pilot group of users before you apply, because it could be disruptive, right? Next, we'll configure emails to inherit the highest priority label, as we talked, from any attachments with labels applied. And that's what we did there. Okay. So more information, this is about now Power BI, if you want to do that as well. And next, we'll give the policy a name, and then click on next. Here we can edit individual sections, or we can go back and do that. And then once we're ready, and we'll click on submit. The new policy has been created. Okay. The order the sensitivity label policies are listed reflects the priority in which they will be applied. The label policy will, with the highest priority, is shown at the bottom here. You can change the priority of a policy by selecting the ellipses, right? And then you can move back or whatever. Now, in this case, we'll just leave it like that. All right. Now, let's see how to apply a sensitivity label in Microsoft Teams. So we're going to open Teams, and we are going to just basically create one. Let's add some members to this team to see how that works. Now let's upload some files related to this confidential project. Let's open one of the files that we just uploaded. And let's try to print this document. Now, printing is still available because the document has not yet been labeled and protected. So let's close this. If we click on the sensitivity drop-down arrow and we go to the highly confidential label, and then we click highly confidential, and then the research and development, the sensitivity label now appears in the status bar at the bottom of the screen, and the lock icon indicates that the file is encrypted. So next, select the tag at the right of the document. So this is the custom header that we added when we configured, the label. The sensitivity content in this document is now protected. So let's try to print the document again and see what happens. And obviously, printing is now unavailable because the permissions that we assigned to the sensitivity label have now been applied. Okay, so that's basically what would happen there. Now, team members inside and outside the organization who have the appropriate permissions can rather co-author the encrypted document at the same time. To see anyone else who is working on the document, select the user icon right here. And then we can see who's doing that. If we click on editing, and we open in the desktop app, when you open files in Office desktop apps, any protection settings are still applied, and you can easily manage the document sensitivity using the sensitivity bar at the top of the window. So if we go here, right, we can see the sensitivity, and again, so we can look at the different sensitivity labels right there. In this case, we'll leave the sensitivity label as is. Okay, and we're going to close this document out. Now let's create a new document that contains sensitive information. So click on New, Word document, provide a name, and then just create it. The conditions trigger the policy, and the message suggests applying the sensitivity label. So there is a tip that says, hey, you've got to do, so it says your organization recommends that you change the sensitivity to highly confidential. That means that it's not automatically applied. You can change that. You have the permission to do that, but at least, you get a notice over there that you can do that. So the sensitivity label has been applied, encrypting the file and adding the custom header. Okay. Now let's take a look at how the labeling policy protects sensitive information in Outlook. will send a message to an external contact about upcoming product news for Project Obsidian. A tooltip appears with a recommendation to change the sensitivity of the message before sending it. Select change sensitivity and then send the message. Now let's switch to the print and see what happens, right? Um, when the person basically when the user tries to read the message, right? Um, you need to click on this. So the message is not basically there. So when you say if you send an email to someone outside, like in this case Gmail, the person cannot read the message on Gmail. So if we click on this, okay, the user is notified that the message is protected and is prompted to sign in with a one-time passcode. Okay, um, so and this is a very key important aspect of the zero trust framework, right? Protecting this message. So when you send an email to someone that is outside of Microsoft, the Microsoft ecosystem, then the person needs to basically go into with this sign into Office with this one-time passcode. Okay, and then now you get access to the message, but notice that you were signed in. So this is kind of like a box. So you need to go into Microsoft Office in order to see that. Okay. So the user has received an email that contains a link to a product announcement, a draft, stored in a SharePoint site. So this is, maybe someone inside. This is um, a different case. So when you click on this, again, sorry, you don't have permission to open this document because that person doesn't have the permission to do that. Okay. So in Power BI, any end user with the appropriate permissions, because remember that we chose Power BI, can apply sensitivity labels to reports, dashboards, data sets, and data flows. Now let's create a new report containing projected sales data for Project Obsidian. And so let's click on this. Based on the configuration of your label policy, we are prompted to add a label. The report has been created and its content is now protected. Now, for more information, let's open the Microsoft documentation. Just take a look at that. You can go on Google for this information if you want to learn more about this. All right, and that's it. So this interactive guide is now complete. All right, so as always, thank you for watching. If you like this type of content, please like it. But most importantly, subscribe to my channel to keep informed and also to motivate me to keeping doing this kind of things, and at the same time you would be helping me promote this channel and grow the channels as well. Thank you, and I hope to see you next in this journey about zero trust, uh, the zero trust framework with Microsoft solutions and services.